Actually, this is from the Gartner's list, from the previous graph that you saw. And I put it here, what these are, 5G. So 5G, there is a lot of activity on 5G. What is 5G? We don't know yet. Nobody knows it yet. But it is something beyond 4G. All of us have 4G, right? Your phone says 4G. And so by 2020, there will be 5G. 2020 is 5 years away. By that time, we should have 5G. And so the ITU, etc., are working on it. And this will be 100 times the LTE. So right now you have LTE, and this will be 100 times. We are talking in gigabits on your cell phone. Okay? How is all this possible, right? So we'll talk about that. Cognitive radio. Cognitive radio is find unused channels and use them. So the problem is that there is no spectrum. So the government of different countries, including the United States, starting with the United States, let me put it this way, has given permission to use the unused channels. So if there is a TV channel which the TV station is not using, you can go ahead and use it. But the rule is within few seconds of their coming on, you have to get off. So how do you do that? Now AH is about Internet of Things. And Internet of Things is basically everything is going to have internet connection. And so everything in your house will be internet connected. So what we need is a technology that is standard, cheap, and goes long distance. And so Wi-Fi guys decided to do this AH, which is in response to Zigbee and Bluetooth trying to get there. So this is the version of Wi-Fi which goes very long distance, doesn't need very much speed, so it is only runs at only few kilobits per second, but it goes very long distance. So your little thing somewhere, very cheaply can talk long distance. Then terahertz waves. So when we talk about this spectrum in the next class actually, so this is also called sub-millimeter waves. Every frequency, every wave is measured by the wavelength and by the frequency. So the wavelength is sub-millimeter, less than a millimeter, and the frequency is many terahertz. If you increase the frequency too high, it becomes light. If you decrease the frequency too low, it becomes sound. Okay, so right now I have wireless transmission, except it is not radio. Like radio is in between the sound and the light. So terahertz is very high up there. And as you go up in the frequency, and this is all next week's lecture, you will see the things start behaving like light. As you go down in the speed, it behaves like a sound. The radio behaves like a sound. So at very high frequencies like this, it goes in a straight line and cannot go through that door. And so we will study all this next time. But for now, terahertz waves are coming up. 0.3 to 3 terahertz between radio and light. 802.11 AD. That's another attempt by 802.11 guys. And 802.11 is done at IEEE, and all of you can go to IEEE. IEEE is open forum. Any of you, if you decide to go to IEEE, you just have to look up in IEEE when there is next meeting, you go there. Except that right now they charge you $800 registration fee for each meeting. If you pay that, you are in, you can go to any meeting, you can discuss, talk, you cannot vote until you go 3 times. So I go there once a year, and just to figure out what's going on. Okay? So there are all kinds of people in 802. 802.11 AH guys are the one that want to have low speed but long distance. AD guys are the other corner of the room. They want to go short distance but at a very high speed. Yeah.
You say long distance, what's the...
Yeah, that's a relative term. Longer than the other Wi-Fis. Right? Because this is Wi-Fi. And the advantage of Wi-Fi is that these devices can somehow speak 802.11. So if your laptop is 802.11, it can somehow talk to this. Okay? As opposed to LTE. If your laptop has Wi-Fi and you have a long distance LTE, you can talk. So this is Wi-Fi, but the version of Wi-Fi which goes very short distance, but many gigabits. Right now, you see, thing is, your Wi-Fi can go all over the room, not all over the house, right? This one will not go all over the house. This will go maybe from here to this wall, maybe. But why do you need it? You need it because you want to connect this your TV. You want to connect your TV to a VCR. You want to do some things which is very high speed, but very short distance.
So it replaces the cable, the Ethernet cable?
Yeah, it just replaces the cable. See, right now, if you go behind your TV, there's a big mess in every room, in everybody's house. Okay, because you have 15 devices trying to connect to the TV, 15 cables and power, 15 power cables. There's no way to organize them. AD will get rid of all of that except the power cable, right? Power cable still. So that is AD. Smart antennas. So the thing is, antennas have all kinds of things, like they need a direction, they need an orientation. If you put the antenna this way, you get different signal. If you put it this way, there is different signal. So can't we make them smart so that they do it themselves rather than you're going and tuning them up? Actually in our old house, we don't no longer use antenna. But in our old house, we had a rotor which will rotate the antenna into the right direction, TV antenna. Now we don't use TV antennas anymore because we get everything through the cable, right? So many of you have not seen those antennas, but many of you might have seen outside some houses which are still there, right? Those big, Yagi and things like that, antenna. Okay, so smart antennas. LTE advanced. LTE is already here. But there is LTE advanced, which is next generation of LTE, which may not be 100 times, but maybe 10 times, so that is in between. 802.11 AC. No, yeah, go ahead.
What do you mean by real 4G on LTE advanced?
Okay, so what happened was, this is a story, thank you for asking. We were working on WiMAX. And you can see on my website hundreds of contributions to WiMAX. We also got, WiMAX individual contribution award, contributor award, and all that. And that was supposed to be 4G. Okay, WiMAX. And then what happened is suddenly people, actually that was on the way to 4G. Actually, it was not 4G. It was 3.75G or something like that. Anyway. People, there was this industry tension between the carriers and the data people. There are two kinds of networking guys. One who work for the phone company, one who work for the other companies like, enterprise, like, Facebook or Google or something. They are not phone companies. So, WiMAX was popular with the enterprise, and other guys will not have anything, but they just took most of the things from WiMAX and called it LTE and immediately called it 4G. So this was not supposed to be 4G. And so there was a plan for 4G from ITU, and which they had invited as to how will you do this, and WiMAX had presented a proposal called WiMAX version 2 or something. And LTE had presented a proposal, but both of them were served, and people started making LTE, and now you have LTE, and then they had a problem what to call it. 3.75G doesn't sell, so they call it 4G. So there is this now there is LTE advanced, and I would not be surprised if LTE advanced is called 5G, and then real 5G will be called 6G. So that has to happen. That hasn't happened yet. But marketing people are ahead of the technology people. Right now, 5G is still being designed, but by the time 2020, nobody is going to wait, and I would not be surprised if by before that this LTE advanced comes in as 5G. This is the real 4G. Yeah.
So it's not clear for me. Sometimes the network appears as 4G, sometimes a bit like LTE. So they are the same.
Actually, they are the same because there's nothing other than LTE right now. Okay, so whether it is LTE or 4G, it's the same thing. So the thing is, now I got to check, now that you asked, I got to check whether, are there any LTE advanced equipment already in?
I think in South Korea, the
Yeah?
Samsung, they have devices, they have LTE advanced in there.
They have advanced in there?
Yeah.
So maybe. So I got to check this out. I won't make any statement until I check this out. But LTE advanced is 4G, and maybe if they are showing you LTE and 4G, then they are being somewhat truthful. AC is the highest speed Wi-Fi, normal distance Wi-Fi available right now. If you buy anything today, you generally buy AC. It goes several hundred megabits per second and goes quite a bit of distance, covers the whole house. Okay, so AC is the high speed Wi-Fi. Wi-Fi direct is another thing which is happening. And Wi-Fi direct is basically that sometimes we really don't want to talk in every direction. We want to talk in a particular direction. So why not just connect to one station rather than connecting to 15 people? And so that way you can save some energy and you can get longer distances, higher speed with point to point. And you don't need the access point. Yeah.
Is that the one? It's supposed to be AC, the Wi-Fi direct?
No, they're not the same, but Wi-Fi direct is a mode in AC. So if you have AC, you might have a feature which says we do Wi-Fi direct. In that case, it will just talk to somebody else. So Wi-Fi direct actually is not really a special thing. It's just a feature which can be added. 11U is in increasing security. Previously, we had 11I, which was very secure. And before that, I think we had 11E. And so 11U is authentication for hotspots. And that is still very kind of a problematic. Right now, when you go to any hotel, you never know. There is no standard way to connect to Wi-Fi. Some hotels will, you connect to something, and you're trying to do Google, you have to do Google, and then suddenly the hotel website will come up, and then your browser will complain that this is not the right website, you are being attacked, this and that, and you say, no, go ahead, and then they'll get you a point where you can put a password. Is that the right way to do authentication? No. There should be some way so that, it's a standard, so you just connect it, right? That is what 11U is all about. But anyway, small cells. Small cells, basically, the current cells are few kilometers. They put it high on the tower. And the longer the distance, the less speed you get. If you want to get higher speed, we have to put many towers very, very close. So that makes the cell smaller. Right? They could be as small as this room size. So basically, there are picocell, femtocells, all kinds of cells. And you can put a cell in my home. I do have a femtocell or picocell. Basically, what happens is because I cannot get the signal, the carrier signal directly from their big tower, they have asked me to put one of their devices on the window so it gets some signal from the tower and then it broadcasts inside, so I still get some signal on my cell phone. Okay? Yeah.
I heard about the internet one.
SNS?
The internet signal that's using the internet cable.
Oh yeah, so then that's a different one. This is small cell is still not coming through wire. So there is another way that he's pointing out is that in this case, you really don't have to come through the wireless. You could come through your cable like U-Works or something, and then you could transmit it in your room. That's a different technology, and that is probably not on this list, but could be. Okay, here in the small cells, it comes. And by the way, I have T-Mobile, and this was the problem basically. Actually, this was the problem with AT&T as well in my home because it was kind of out in the suburb, and the signal from every carrier is very weak. And T-Mobile provided me with this free thing, and so I'm happy with that. 802.22. Now this is an attempt to cover the longer distances. This is not 11, but this is still 802, and I will describe to you later on as to what it means to be 802 and what it means to be 11. I already described what it means to be 11. 11 means that you have to talk to other 11s. 22 does not have to talk to other 11s, but they still have to follow all the 802 rules which are there. We will talk about those too. So this is a regional area. Regional means a city. So with 802.22, you can talk all over the city. It's like WiMAX and LTE, but it is from IEEE. WiMAX was from WiMAX forum. LTE is from ITU or HC and things like that. So there are different standards bodies that compete for the same problem. Okay, and just thinking loud, and I haven't done checking on this. I think 22 is not going to succeed given that LTE is already here. So it might be history. Super Wi-Fi. Yeah.
What is white spaces?
White spaces. Yeah. Good. Thank you for asking. So cognitive radio is also called white spaces. And I already described cognitive radio is when that you use the television channels when the television channel is not active. Right? So that is called white space because space has been allocated but there is no residents there right now. Okay? And so if you have, and we will discuss that in this class, if you have this white space device, then basically you scan all the channels continuously. Alright, and you stay on one channel. When you see somebody's come on this one, you go to the next channel that you have available. And then you come back to the first channel. So the user doesn't see any of this, the device does this automatically. White spaces. Super Wi-Fi is another version of 802.22, but this is Wi-Fi using TV white spaces. So you see, even in 82, there are two different standards trying to solve the same problem. And LTE. So China didn't want to use LTE, so they have their own version of LTE called TD-LTE, time division duplexing rather than frequency division duplexing. So it uses TD-LTE. And there is a history behind it because they have been using time division in the previous versions of wireless, and they're a big market by themselves. Very large part of the world they cover, right? So they can have their own standards. So they have TD-LTE. Zigbee. And Zigbee you have heard about. This is for IoT, Internet of Things. Zigbee is the standard being done by something Zigbee Association or whatever for connecting Internet of Things. Again, they are getting a lot of competition from IEEE and from Bluetooth. Yeah.
Sorry, I would like to ask.
No, they don't have to be sorry. This is good. I mean, I encourage questions. Go ahead. Yeah.
I'd like to ask about the TD-LTE.
Yeah.
Is it the same speed as the frequency?
Same speed and frequency as LTE?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Even with the lot of users? Many.
Okay, so when we go to LTE, we will talk about time division and frequency division. What's the difference? Why you need time division? So there are two versions of LTE actually, just to be correct about it. And there are some advantages of time division.
Because we have two of these.
Huh?
My home country, we use both of them.
You use both of them? You have TD-LTE?
Yes, and this is TD-LTE.
Okay.
The Wi-Fi version.
Yeah, so somebody has to see. The thing is, I mean, you can have one device which can do all of these, right? But all you're doing is you're putting 5 chips there. You see? So the standards may not be compatible all the way through, but some parts may be same and some parts may be different, right? So you can optimize that. Good. Thank you for asking that. Right now, I haven't explained you time division, which is kind of you probably know, but when we come to these things, we will describe in more detail. Actually, I think all of these topics are covered in this course. 802.11r. So I was wrong about China. See, the thing is, there is some politics in the standards bodies, and there is some patenting rights, this and that, which I don't want to go right now. But many countries don't like the idea that some other countries just take the money for the technology. I would complain, right? I mean, so you would complain, but so that's what it is. So they don't want to use this other standards; they want to have their own standards. And then, of course, that can be sold to other countries. But the thing is, the thing is that I'm surprised that they are using in your country. But basically, I thought that it was for internal use in China. So far, I thought that.
But the model is from China.
Eh?
The modems they are using is from China.
Everything is from China, right? So here the thing about China is that China has to manufacture LTE anyway, because how can they sell in America, right? So all the equipment comes from China. However, for internal use, they did not want to pay the royalties, and that's a big population and big thing like that. And there are lots of politics about that. So they were different, and the same thing was actually I can tell you a story, just a story. So Europe is different than USA in most of the communication technologies as we go through this, for similar reasons and some other reasons. Okay, so your television here does not work in Europe. Phone luckily works nowadays, but previously it did not. Okay, and even wired phone will not work. So there is a reason for it. Electricity is different, and why is it different? I can go through that history later on. All right, so 82.11r. So basically, nowadays people are very, very mobile, and we go from station to station to station. When you go from here to my office, you've probably gone through several base stations. And if everywhere you have to authenticate yourself, your connection will be brought down. And so they have come up with fast method where you are pre-authenticated somehow, and you just go and your connection continues. LTE is long-term evolution 3.9G. Okay, you already know all that.